Hi, everyone, and welcome back to a Criminally Basic podcast. My name is Megan.
And I'm Hannah.
And guys, usually I will script out my opening statement. Whenever I write these episodes, I have pretty much everything scripted out. I don't script our interaction, Hannah.
Yeah.
I don't really think that's necessary, but I do write out everything that I want to say in terms of details about a case.
Yes.
Including the intro. But oh my goodness, I have fallen down a rabbit hole, and I'm never coming out.
I know this case you're covering, and I can't blame you at all.
Right. So, I mean, the murder of Caylee Anthony and the trial of her mother is a case that I at least always thought that I knew.
Same. I would agree with that.
Right? It's kind of one of those cases where anyone in the true crime space is at least passingly familiar with it.
Yeah.
And even people who don't consume true crime content know the name Casey Anthony.
Yeah. It's kind of like OJ in that sense.
Exactly. So before I fell down this really deep, dark, twisted rabbit hole.
And that is a rabbit hole you fell down.
Yes, it is. My only knowledge of the case was that there was this woman and she killed her kid and got away with it. End of story. And even after researching this case, even though my personal opinion has not necessarily changed, I was really surprised to learn about all of the intricacies and evidence and lack of evidence in a case that I think truly, really defined the modern meaning of what it means to be hated by an entire nation.
Yeah.
One of the more surprising aspects to me, before we really start diving into this, something that really shocked me was that Casey was 22 when this happened.
She was, wasn't she?
She was. Hannah, you and I are 23.
Yes.
So this woman was younger than we are
Mm-hmm.
when she had an entire country turn on her for what they perceived to be the murder of her almost 3-year-old daughter.
I can't imagine what it would feel like having the entire country hating you.
Mm-hmm.
I cry when getting yelled at. I can't imagine.
And I don't say this in defense of Casey Anthony.
Oh, no.
Absolutely not. It was kind of a surreal moment when I realized just how young she was.
I remember being little and seeing the trial play out on TV.
I remember it happening. I knew that it was happening. I knew that something had happened, but I wasn't really plugged into any sort of reliable knowledge source.
Mama Sharp loved her true crime TV shows.
Mm.
We watched those together when I was little. And I remember Casey Anthony. I remember when the whole Anna Nicole Smith thing was going on.
Mm-hmm.
We watched a lot of Nancy Grace.
Yeah. Growing up, I wasn't really involved in any sort of true crime thing.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up rather sheltered. I don't think my parents will disagree with that.
Yeah.
And so I never was really exposed to anything like that until I got to be kind of a teenager and really developing my own interests. But Casey Anthony was one that I just never really fell down the rabbit hole of until 2 weeks ago. And now I'm never coming out. So for many, the story begins with a 911 call made by Cindy, who was Casey's mother and Caylee's grandmother, on July 15th, 2008. However, before we even dive into what happened, I really want to lay out the foundation of who Casey was in order to better understand the events leading up to her daughter's death. Casey was born on March 19th, 1986, to parents Cindy and George. Her father had worked in law enforcement as she was growing up, and that experience would later play a rather damning role in the initial days of the investigation.
That it would.
According to a page on biography.com, Casey appeared to friends and family as a, quote, bright, personable young girl, end quote. I couldn't find anything about interpersonal issues during her school years, but there are plenty of sources that state that she began lying to those same friends and family when it suited her. I think we're all guilty of telling lies here and there. But two things stand out to me when I look at what has been proven and corroborated by people who knew her. First, she lies easily. She is one of those people who can be telling you something entirely untrue, but look and sound so convincing that you believe her.
That's such a dangerous skill to have.
And second, her lies are not small. An incident that is consistently referenced is her high school graduation. There are sources that differ with the details of exactly what happened, but sometime during her last semester of her senior year of high school, Casey just stopped attending classes. Some say that it was to go hang out with her older boyfriend. Some say it was simply because she didn't want to go to school anymore. But whatever the reason, graduation rolled around, and Casey did not have enough credits to graduate. Her excuse was that her schedule got messed up by the school, which caused her to miss classes. Now, I'm not sure why her parents didn't know beforehand. I have no idea what kind of truancy program the school had,
Yeah.
or, why no one bothered to call her parents to let them know that their kid just isn't showing up to school.
Yeah, like I know with my high school, if they accidentally like marked you as absent, they would have an automated system call your parents and be like, this person's not here.
Yeah, I went to a teeny tiny little high school.
Uh,
I graduated in a class of 33 people. Like
yeah,
it was really
tiny.
small. But whenever there was a question about why a student wasn't there, the teacher would call the office, and then the office would either confirm, oh yes, we got a call this morning, they're homesick, or the office would then proceed to call the parents. Regardless of the details, Casey would not graduate. However, rather than, making their daughter go back to school or trying to work something out with the school to help her make up the credits that she was missing, her parents hid the fact that she didn't graduate. They even had a graduation party for her, knowing full well that there was no graduation to be celebrated in the first place.
Okay, like I don't get the going to that extreme.
I entirely agree, and I think that this is a really good example of it was okay for her to lie, or maybe not okay for her to lie, but she could get away with it and not have these really bad repercussions.
They're truly enabling her, and that's terrible.
Absolutely. I shudder to think of what might have happened if I did that in high school.
I would have like been killed or something. I wouldn't have been killed. That's a lie.
We would have had a true crime episode about Hannah.
Yes, I would not have been killed, but like I would have been in serious trouble.
Absolutely. I would have at least been grounded probably for the rest of my life, if not longer.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah, that I don't
No,
understand the enabling
no,
of,
and to
of this
that
behavior.
extreme.
Yes. I want to make it really clear here that while there is a lot of speculation about her upbringing, I couldn't find a lot of definitive, corroborated information from sources that I trust. I tend to be pretty picky with the sources that
Hmm.
I use, and Hannah, I know that you're the same way,
Yeah,
especially since here in the United States, there isn't a law that states that journalists have to correct any misinformation that they report, at least not a law that I'm aware of. Some will correct previous mistakes in other articles, and some will just take down the article altogether.
hmm,
But an article with incorrect information can just float out in the internet for years.
yeah. Or lawsuits can get brought involved.
Exactly. There is a lot of speculation in this case, and I will do my best to be clear about when something is speculative versus when something is proven, but I wanted to make that statement before anything gets muddled. Casey's parents were always on her side, for better or for worse, which is why, when she became pregnant at age 19, they were happy to support their daughter. Caylee was born on August 9th, 2005. The identity of the father, as far as I can tell, is still unknown to this day. Casey claimed that it was several people, but nothing was proven. She did have a partner at the time, and that man was considered to be her father, but a paternity test actually ruled him out as Caylee's biological
Yeah.
father.
Oh, okay.
Casey and Caylee lived with Cindy and George for the remainder of Caylee's life. This brings us to 2008, when Casey said that she had a work assignment out of town and would be taking Caylee with her. Casey, according to a Crime Watch Daily interview series with Chris Hansen, would be traveling between Jacksonville and Tampa for a week. However, in this interview, her mother states that 1 week turned into 2, which turned into 3, which turned into more. A timeline published by ABC News states that the car Casey was driving in was towed on June 30th in Orlando. Not Tampa or Jacksonville, where she said she'd be, Orlando. The towing company called Casey's parents because they were the ones who owned the car, and they became understandably concerned. What's more, they hadn't heard from their granddaughter since the day that she left. So Casey's parents are down in Orlando, and that's when they find out that the job for Universal Studios that Casey had said that she'd had was not real. Casey had worked for Universal a few years prior to June 2008, but was no longer employed there. She would later go on to tell police that she was an event coordinator, which also wasn't true because when she was working at Universal, she was working behind a kiosk.
Oh, that's really different.
Casey's parents picked up the vehicle from the impound lot, where the concern that they had been feeling turned into a stronger sense of knowing something is wrong. You know that gut feeling that you get when you just know something's not right?
Absolutely.
That is, I'm sure, what they felt in that moment.
Oh, I can guarantee you they were feeling that.
George, who had spent years in law enforcement, was familiar with the smell of human decomposition and recognized it right away when he opened the car door. To be fair, there were bags of trash in the trunk. Some sources say that there was a pizza in the back, and I believe that was stated in the trial as well.
It was.
But there is a difference between the smell of rotting pizza and the smell of human remains.
There absolutely is. I've never smelled rotten remains, but from what I've heard, everyone says you'll know it when you smell it.
Absolutely.
And rotten pizza is not that.
No, definitely not. In the same Chris Hansen interview that I referenced earlier, it was actually done only a few years ago, so it wasn't from 2008, 2009. Yeah. It was from, I believe, 2015. Actually, no. 2017, 2018? One of those. Fairly recently. George actually would state that the smell was one that he definitely recognized from his years of service.
Yeah.
July 15th was the day that Casey's parents found her in an Orlando suburb with her then boyfriend. Cindy said in that Chris Hansen interview that as soon as she opened the door, she could smell marijuana, so she knew immediately that Caylee was not in the apartment. When asked where Caylee was, Casey replied that she was with her nanny, Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez, or Zanny for short. However, when her mother asked to go get her, Casey then told her some really shocking news. Caylee had been kidnapped by the nanny, and she hadn't seen her in a month.
If that was true, why didn't you call within the hour?
Casey does try to kind of explain this away later. We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
I have opinions. The 911 phone call that followed is bizarre, to say the least. Cindy had actually called 911 earlier to try to report Caylee missing and then to also report that something about the vehicle being stolen or something like that. Casey would end up committing several minor crimes throughout kind of this whole ordeal, so her mom was calling to report one of them. And then also mentioned that, she hadn't seen her granddaughter in a month and was concerned that she was missing. But when she calls the second time, she's absolutely frantic. And I want to play that 911 call for us now. Hello friends, Editing Megan here. I forgot to say while Hannah and I were recording the actual episode that this 911 call has been edited down a little bit. The full 911 call is available online for anybody who wants to listen to it, but just to cut down on time and really focus on the important parts, it has been edited a little bit. All right, thanks.
911, what's your emergency? I called a little bit ago. The deputy sheriff said I found out my granddaughter has been taken. She has been missing for a month. Her mother finally admitted that she's been missing. Okay, what is here now? Okay, what is the address that you're calling from? We're talking about a 3-year-old little girl. My daughter finally admitted that the baby's in the store. I need to find her. Your daughter admitted that the baby is where? But the babysitter took her a month ago that my daughter's been looking for. I told you my daughter was missing for a month. I just found her today, but I can't find my granddaughter. She just admitted to me that she's been trying to find her herself. This something wrong. I found my daughter's car today, and it smells like there's been a dead body in the damn car.
Okay, what is the 3-year-old's name?
Caylee, Caylee Anthony.
Caylee Anthony?
Yes.
Okay, is she white, black, or Hispanic?
She's white.
How long has she been missing for?
I have not seen her since the 7th of June.
What is her date of birth?
8/9/2000. Oh God, she's 3. She's 2005.
Is your daughter there?
Yes.
Can I speak with her? Do you mind if I speak with her? Thank you.
Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
Hi. Well, can you tell me what's going on a little bit?
I'm sorry?
Can you tell me a little bit what's going on?
My daughter's been missing for the last 31 days.
And you know who has her?
I know who has her. I've tried to contact her. I actually received a phone call today, now from a number that is no longer in service. I did get to speak to my daughter for about a minute.
Who has her? Do you have a name?
Her name is Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez.
Who is that? Babysitter?
She's been my nanny for about 1.5 years, almost 2 years.
Why are you calling now? Why didn't you call 31 days ago?
I've been looking for her and have gone through other resources to try to find her, which was stupid.
So let's talk about this a little bit.
Okay.
So the first thing, because I have this whole transcript in front of me, and I have some notes here. So the first thing that I want to touch on before we get into your points was Cindy's claim, quote, "She just admitted to me that she's been trying to find her by herself. There is something wrong. I found my daughter's car today and it smells like there's been a dead body in the damn car," end quote. Cindy would later end up recanting this statement.
I think allegedly, supposedly, it did smell like a dead body, but she recanted for reasons that are unknown.
My opinion on this is that she recanted in order to present a united front to the media, to the prosecutors, to everyone, because her family really did rally around her in the early days of the investigation.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, really through the trial, up until there were a few claims.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But this to me is the first thing that really stands out as being a little bit different than your typical 911 call of a frantic parent calling, saying, "My child is missing," or "My grandchild is missing."
Definitely agree with all those points. But I think after that 911 call and then her recanting, I think it looks like they were trying to hide something more than anything.
That is definitely how it appeared.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also just the difference between her and Casey.
The difference in their tone?
Yes, their difference in their tone. Cindy was so frantic and hysterical, and then Casey, who was the mother who birthed this child, was just like, "Oh yeah." It was just like she was ordering a pizza or something, just so calm.
Absolutely. And I think, we do, playing the devil's advocate here, just for the sake of argument. I don't know.
I don't know, but we have to.
I don't know.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. So Casey had known that her kid was gone at that point, and she had known that her kid was gone for a month. So she has had a month. It's a long time. And so she's had a month to process this, whereas her mother, Cindy, is just now finding out about this.
Yeah.
So I can understand a difference in their tone to an extent. So Casey states, "My daughter has been missing for 31 days. And the 911 operator asks, do you know who has her? And Casey says, quote, "I know who has her. I tried to contact her and I actually received a phone call today from a number that is no longer in service. I did get to speak to my daughter for about a minute," end quote. So she's claiming here that she got to talk with her kid. Yeah. She's not only claiming that this person took her daughter 31 days ago, but that she is consistently receiving information, or that she has received information that day that her kid is still alive. And to
Yeah,
me,
alive and well, safe, everything.
exactly. And to me, this just hits me differently.
Yeah, no, I agree.
The fact that not only, you're not saying, I hope my daughter is still alive. You're saying, I know my daughter is still alive because I've spoken with her
Yeah,
today.
that she's alive and safe. There's worry, but not worry if she's dead worry.
Exactly. The next thing that stands out to me is, the nanny, Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez, who we would actually come to find out that a woman named Zenaida Gonzalez actually does exist. However, she didn't know Casey. Casey didn't know her. She didn't know Casey. She'd never babysat Caylee.
How lucky do you have to get to just pick that name out and there actually be a person with that name?
I did see one place, so again, speculation, that Zenaida Gonzalez, the real woman, had either applied to the apartment to a apartment complex that Casey was at or had been at.
Yeah.
So that maybe she saw that name there, and that's just the first name
Yeah.
that came to mind. A name that is obscure enough, but not, completely out of the realm of possibility obscure. The next point that stands out is when Casey claims that Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez has been Caylee's nanny for about a year and a half to 2 years. So, and her parents actually would say that she had consistently referenced Zanny the nanny throughout Caylee's life, or at least last year and a half, 2 years. What does this mean? I don't know. The last point that stands out is when Casey says, quote, I've been looking for her and have gone through other resources to try to find her, which is stupid, end quote. Which, yeah.
Yeah.
It is stupid.
Yeah, it is stupid.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
There's no other word for it.
No,
Baffling.
Astonishing.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't know. We could dive into this 911 call for hours.
Oh no, you really could. It's like the John Bonet 911 call.
It absolutely is. You're so right.
Yeah.
So afterwards, after this 911 call is placed, the police arrive and Casey is then interviewed. The recordings of her various interviews and interrogations are available online, but at least for this first one, I'm just going to break down the major points that she and Detective Yuri Melich, who's one of the detectives on the case, I'm going to break down what they discuss.
Yeah. Because we could talk about that for at least 10 hours.
We could do an entire podcast on...
We could.
On all of the interview tapes and decipher every little thing she says.
Yeah.
So first, Casey says that she took Caylee to Zenaida's home and dropped her off. She states that she had known Zanny the nanny for almost 4 years and had met her through a mutual friend named Jeffrey Hopkins, with whom she had worked at Universal.
Mm-hmm.
According to this first statement, Zenaida was Jeffrey's son's nanny as well, so she would just watch both of the children together. This story could make sense. It would make sense if Jeffrey Hopkins had actually worked with Casey. It would make sense if he had a kid in the first place. Casey goes on to make up this man's entire work history, his family, and she even says that she had spoken with him just a week prior to July 15th, which the real Jeffrey Hopkins ends up denying in court. The thing that baffles me about all of this is just the ease at which she's able to lie. The detective is asking her questions and she just immediately responds with answers. She doesn't think about it. She doesn't have a questioning or thoughtful tone to her voice. She just states these lies straight up as if they were facts.
I don't know how someone can do that. Like,
I
can
either.
barely lie in Among Us when I'm the imposter. Let alone flat out, that's making up an entire world in your head in a matter of seconds.
It really is. It's kind of chilling to watch because, again, it goes back to, you think that she's telling the truth because based on her body language, based on her tone, based on, just the way in which she's interacting with police, especially in this first interview,
Yeah.
you don't really have a reason to doubt her. These
No, you
circumstances make
don't.
you doubt her.
Absolutely. But like her tone and stuff, you'll be like, oh, yep. Okay, cool.
Casey says that when she first realized Caylee was missing, she didn't want to go home because she wasn't sure of what she would say or do. She tried contacting the nanny, but got nothing. She said she hoped she would find where her daughter was or that Caylee was coming back. After that, she said that she went to her boyfriend's place and, just didn't tell him about the whole situation. Although she didn't tell her boyfriend, she does say that she told Juliette Lewis, a coworker at Universal, who just so happens to not exist. Detective Melick, or Melich, depending on the pronunciation of the reporter, asks why she didn't report Caylee missing to the police. Obvious question.
Yeah.
And Casey says she thought she could handle it by herself and that she was scared. She's quoted as saying, "Fear of the unknown," end quote.
I get the scared part.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's a time when scared needs police. That's when you turn over to the police and you're like, hey, I don't know what to do. I need help. Help.
Absolutely. After this, the detective asks her a series of questions about, if she hurt Caylee, does she need to alter any of the statements that she's just given them, all of which Casey denies.
They gave her a chance to like come back from future charges and stuff that she will receive later.
They gave her so many chances. From there, the police investigated the addresses that Casey mentioned in her interview. Jeffrey's home, Zenaida's apartment, her office at Universal. All of these places are made up. Casey even took police around Universal before she admitted that she no longer worked there. The fact that she went this far is crazy. I can maybe give her a little bit of a pass for lying to her parents. Because if you've been fired from your job and...
You don't want to tell your parents that.
Right, exactly. And I don't know if she was, trying to get another job and was kind of trying to do that thing where, you've been fired from your one job and you don't want people to know that you're unemployed, so you're gonna go out and get a new job and then say that you quit the old one and that, that whole firing thing never happened.
Yeah.
I've heard of people doing that. I've known people in my own life to do that.
Yeah, and I mean, there's nothing wrong with that because
that's a lie that's not harming a child.
It's not harming a child. It's not harming anyone.
Right.
Not saying lying is great at all, but if it harms no one,
there's less of a repercussion.
Yeah.
For that, definitely.
Yeah.
But considering the circumstances, there was a massive repercussion to this lie. And that repercussion was that she was arrested. So according to an ABC article titled Casey Anthony, Timeline of Key Events in the Murder Trial of the Florida Mother, she was charged this time with child neglect. And that's what they arrested her on.
Which, makes sense. Your child's missing for a month.
Yeah, that's pretty neglectful.
Very neglectful.
So continuing on with the interview tapes, the detectives now know that Casey is lying. Straight up lying. So they have no reason to believe anything that comes out of her mouth.
Yeah.
They, outright accuse her of lying about every single thing that she has told them, including the location of Caylee. She said that she lied because she, quote, didn't know what to do, end quote. And the detectives just grill her in this interview. There's two of them at this point. There's Detective Melick, or Melich, I think it's Melick, and Detective Allen. And they are just going back and forth, just grilling her. And her responses are almost comical in the way that she tries to excuse her behavior. One of my personal favorite moments in this particular interview is when a second detective, that Detective Allen that I just mentioned, asks, quote, "Did you just think that one day she's going to show up at your house?" To which Casey responds, quote, "No, I sat around yesterday trying to figure out what to do," end quote. What do you mean you sat around yesterday trying to figure out what to do? You shouldn't be sitting around trying to figure out what to do. You should be...
paving the streets, asking everyone.
Exactly.
Hunting people down. Going all Liam Nelson. Whatever the guy is from Taken.
Yeah.
So you should be doing that.
Right, exactly. So the grilling continues, during which Casey does admit to purposefully misleading detectives, And when asked if that would, help them find Caylee, she says, quote, "In a backward sort of way, yes. I'm coming back to places that are familiar to me that I know are familiar to her," end quote. So here she's insinuating that Caylee would return to someplace that's familiar to her, that a 2-year-old, almost 3-year-old, would have the wherewithal to, get a ride to her mom's former workplace. I don't think that any 3-year-old could be with, let's say she's with someone that she does trust. She's with
Yes.
a nanny that she has known pretty much her whole life, but that she is aware enough to give this woman directions to her mother's workplace. Former workplace, not even current workplace. Former workplace.
They don't have the cognitive ability to be like, okay, you turn here at the light, go there.
She's a baby.
She's a baby.
On a call from jail later that evening to her family, Casey says that it's not her fault that she's sitting in jail.
I mean, it kind of is your fault, my dude.
It's 100% your fault, woman.
How is it not? You led police on, and your child's been missing for 31 days, and you haven't called. It's your fault.
Yeah, her mother asks, well, whose fault is it? And she's like, well, it's not mine.
Then whose is it then?
I have no idea. I can't. 9 days later, Casey would get her first visit from her parents in jail. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but during this interaction, she is consistently nonchalant when talking about Caylee, like when her parents are trying to get any information out of her, but breaks down when she's talking about herself. So to me, and to other psychological experts that have examined not only this tape, but the case as a whole, that shows that she doesn't have any regard for her child and really only cares for herself, because she's showing emotion when discussing her circumstances. The most notable thing about this jailhouse interaction is that Casey, when asked by her mother if she thinks Caylee is close, replies, quote, "She's not far. I know in my heart she's not far," end quote.
Oh, that's spooky. That is really spooky.
Yeah, she was not wrong in that statement.
No.
Going through a few other notable dates here, July 22nd, 2008, Casey is officially named as a person of interest in her daughter's disappearance, and police begin treating this officially as a possible homicide. She did make bail, but was arrested several times over the coming months for smaller crimes. Another notable date here is October 2nd of 2008, and that's when Casey was officially named as a suspect in her daughter's disappearance. So for those who aren't aware of the difference between person of interest and suspect, suspect means that they believe that you are responsible for the crime. Person of interest is kind of a lesser label, and it means that they think that you were involved in the crime somehow, but not necessarily that you were the perpetrator of the crime.
Yeah.
12 days later, on October 14th, Casey would be charged with the first-degree murder of her daughter. She was also charged with aggravated child abuse, aggravated manslaughter, and providing false information to law enforcement, which it's about time.
Yep.
The last notable date that I want to touch on in this episode is December 11th of 2008. According to that same ABC News article, a skull was found only half a mile from the Anthony home. Skeletal remains were found wrapped in a Winnie the Pooh blanket, stuffed into a canvas laundry bag, which was then stuffed into a plastic trash bag. DNA testing confirmed that the child's identity was Caylee on December 19th.
That's just horrible thinking about just... from what I read, it was basically a bog that they had put her in.
Mm-hmm.
Putting your child in her favorite blanket and all of that in a bog for her to decompose.
Yeah.
Not even just a decent grave.
No.
A bog.
Murder is horrible. That's kind of an obvious statement to make. But there's something about when that harm is done to a child. In the next episode of mine that covers the Casey Anthony case, we will be discussing the trial, the potential theories, some mental health stuff, but do keep in mind, Hannah and I are not medical professionals. Thank
We are
goodness for
not.
that.
Yes.
And we will also touch on our own personal opinions, theories, etc. in the next episode. Again, all theories, all our opinion.
All
Not
theories. It's just opinions.
exactly. Thank you for listening to A Criminally Basic Podcast. If you'd like to learn more, you can find us at A Criminally Basic Podcast on Instagram and Twitter.
And check out our sources as well as photos on our website at www.acriminallybasicpodcast.podbean.com.
Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.